Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back, and it is August the 4th. We are leaving this side of the Golden Gate Bridge. We're headed to the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we want to share with you, before we get to our real estate information, as we are famous for doing on this podcast, sharing with you guys a story that we heard last night, or a noise, rather, that we heard last night, that we are quite certain was some sort of monster that was coming up from the islands in the water around Alcatraz and around the Golden Gate Bridge. So, Julie, can you describe that monster sound?
Yes. Well, most of you can imagine a foghorn, bah, or something like that. But imagine if you kept hearing different versions of that over and over and started to, first of all, from a musician standpoint, it's like perfectly tuned. Which
was it really?
Crazy,
That's funny.
And I read a lot of articles about this after we got some curiosity on it. Because there were other tones, and somebody wrote that it sounded like an ocean symphony.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Well,
so I looked this stuff up.
You're getting to the analytical part. So
Of
the
course.
gist of it was, is we started hearing these foghorns. They don't sound like foghorns when the fog is really dense. Those of you guys who live near massive bodies of water where you're used to this sort of thing, you have to forgive us for this indulgence, because Julie and I are from Ohio, and where we're in the center of Ohio, and there's no water around us. I mean, we get excited when we see a bathtub full of water where we're from, okay?
Exactly. There's no surfing in Ohio.
That's right. So for us to see the Golden Gate Bridge, let alone have all these experiences, this is pretty awesome for us, and for Zoe certainly, because this is the first time in our lives we've ever heard foghorns like that. We've heard foghorns, but we've never heard foghorns that basically start communicating with each other. And so what you'd hear this really loud one, which evidently Julie, as you are about to hear, research was coming from the bridge itself that we're looking at. We're quite literally looking at the bridge right now. This hotel room is perfectly situated. But then all the other foghorns that would come in response, but they wouldn't be in the same octave. Am I getting this right, music nerd? Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
So they wouldn't be in the same octave, and so you would hear a loud foghorn, and then you'd hear these higher pitched foghorns, and it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
It was.
We were kind of warned about it when we checked in, and
Right.
I think our expectation was that it would be something annoying, but
No.
it ended up being really cool. And in fact, they have different meanings. It's almost like a Morse code for ships.
Go ahead. You can
Okay,
get to the nerdy part.
all right. So there's different versions of this. This, and I also like this because this is unconscious incompetence for us. This is
Totally.
something we didn't know anything about. So, for example, I won't go through all of them. When you hear a prolonged blast at intervals of no more than 2 minutes, the vessel, the ship, is a power-driven vessel making its way through the water. If there's 2 prolonged blasts, 2 seconds in between at intervals of more than 2 minutes. Now, somebody's got to be clocking this, right? Because I was trying to figure this out as I listened. But that means a power-driven vessel underway but stopped. And then it goes on, another example, a bell ringing for 5 seconds in intervals of no more than a minute. They are at anchor. If the vessel is 100 meters or longer, the bell will ring at the forward end of the ship and followed by a gong sounding for 5 seconds in the aft. Now, why do they have this when they have radar? A lot of people were asking that because, people call 911 saying, what in the world am I listening to? Especially if they're not familiar with it, based on some of the stuff I was reading about. Well, part of this is that this is a universal way that ships communicate. And what if their radar is down? What if their communications are down? One of the things that often happens with these foghorns is smaller ships are warned to stay out of the shipping lanes where the bigger, gigantic, that carry like those big shipping containers, because those guys might not see the little guys. So this was very interesting, and it was actually quite beautiful to listen to. So
It
there
was,
you have it.
and that was our experience from the travels that we were on, and we are on what day is this? Do you even remember?
27, I think,
27,
something like that.
And we have a total of roughly 22 days left, right?
Yes.
And then we're
Give
going
or
to return
take.
to Puerto Rico, yeah.
Yep.
So have you started to miss Puerto Rico yet?
Yeah, I miss, lots of different things. Our friends, certainly.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
The beach is pretty cool. We've been seeing lots of different types of beaches, and that's been interesting as well. I think people that don't live around beaches and oceans think that water's water. But the Pacific certainly looks a lot different than our Caribbean Sea.
We've been varying our experience intentionally on this trip. We've been staying at some nice hotels. We've been staying at some roadside hotels. We've been just sort of wanting to inundate ourselves with all kinds of different experiences because in a lot of ways, because we've been on the island of Puerto Rico for 2 years, basically, we've sort of lost connection. Now, obviously, we are connected the way all of you are connected through, digital means. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that replaces travel and actually meeting people and talking with people. And I'll tell you the big takeaway for me is there's definitely a faction of people, I should almost say, that are politically divided and confused and have almost lost their ability to communicate with other people unless those other people think and talk exactly like they are. But that is not, and that's on both sides of the spectrum, right? But that's not a majority of the people. Most people, no matter, whether they're politically leaning to the left or the right, they are 100% American. And that's something I wouldn't have believed that if I just was getting all my information from the media. But people are all over the country. Like, for example, Julie and I were driving around in the hills of San Francisco yesterday. And talk about crazy roads, by the way. People have to be half Billy Goat to live on some of these streets. But you would see a political activist type, banner or whatever. And then you'd see something that was obviously supporting of the local community on a whole, or maybe the occasional American flag, things like that. So even though it does feel like we're a country divided in, at least if you're to believe the news, and maybe even parts of the country, it feels like that. To me, from this experience thus far, and maybe it's just me being an optimist, which is kind of, you kind of have to be.
That was our first point from yesterday.
Yeah, right. There you go. It does feel to me like we're rounding the bend on all of this, and people are going to kind of return to a place of normalcy where they realize that all of us can live in the country at the same time and have, shared
peaceful coexistence,
shared beliefs and shared agreements about how the country is going to be run, and at the same time not necessarily have the same shared beliefs on how, maybe your lifestyle is different than my lifestyle. That which brings Julie and I to the that's as close to the political edge as we want to go. Okay?
Indeed.
That's about it. Because really, this is the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in at least the United States, because we focus primarily on helping you guys build your real estate businesses. And we've been sharing this sojourn around the country with you. We're going to probably end up going to 22 different states. We'll see. Because we wanted to have the essentially the explorative experience, but also because we wanted to share it with all of you. And it is incredibly important that you remember that we are all living in a blessed country and a blessed time in history. We're living, especially in the United States, we're living at what is peak man, right? Mm-hmm. There's never been a better time and a better place to be alive than where you are right now. And at the very least, you should appreciate that. And and from there, maybe really recalculate or really think about why you maybe have some of the beliefs and some of the stances you do on different issues, and ask yourself if that's really moving the ball forward for yourself or for your community. So that's the extent of that. So what we were talking about starting yesterday was powerful practices for the top producing professionals. And what we're talking about are the common elements that really anybody who's going to be successful long-term in life and business, the commonalities that they're going to have. And yesterday we talked about unbridled, passionate optimism. And then we started to meander into superior knowledge of their market. Okay, and so Julie, why don't you pick up?
Okay, so this is a common thing that the most successful professionals have, and we'll, of course, apply it to real estate here. If you missed point number 1 yesterday, just get caught up on your podcast. So we're starting on point number 2, superior knowledge of their market. This includes not just pricing, competition, and tracking comps, but also watching market trends. What's hot and what's not, new construction opportunities, companies relocating executives in and out of town, and development. I like to quote Gandhi on this. He said, live as if you were to die tomorrow, but learn as if you were to live forever. What are you learning today? Are you increasing your knowledge, or are you losing some of your knowledge? It's part of what we strive to do on our podcast here, is to keep you up to speed. Superior knowledge of these top professionals also includes knowing unique financing options, not just relying on conventional mortgage lending, not just for first-time buyers, but also high net worth clients, for people who have had forbearances, for the self-employed. Be able to help everyone at the highest level. Knowledge equals confidence. Ignorance equals fear. The more knowledge you have, the more people you can help. And one of the ways you can tell if you're doing good on this is if you very rarely say, I'm sorry, we don't do this, or I'm sorry, I can't offer that. Things like, express offers. Not every agent offers that. You need to be educated on that.
She's talking about iBuyers, EXP agents. You know what we're talking about. It really is going to be, not in all markets, but in most markets, it's going to become an absolutely necessary tool for you to have in your listing toolbox. If you go to meet with a seller and the seller is comparing you against an iBuyer is somebody who will give them an all-cash offer, and you don't have that, and your option is only to basically go the traditional retail route, and maybe there's a, Zillow agents, for example. There are going to be Zillow agents who are then going to be offered to offer the seller the traditional route of listing the house with Zillow Realty, because it does exist, or essentially wholesaling the house through Zillow's instant offers program. So you're going to have your competitors in most major markets. San Francisco, I guarantee you this is going to happen. If you're not offering an alternative to just the traditional listing route, and it's not about cutting your commission here, folks. It's about basically knowing how to offer the services that the sellers are actually wanting. And this is an interesting epiphany for many of you. Hopefully you've had this already. And by the way, we're not in our normal studio, so if you hear noises in the background, it's just because we're in a hotel room. Yeah. The commission is not the most important thing to the seller. The commission is very rarely the most important thing to the seller. Agents are just living in fear of the sellers asking about commission. So that's what the commission, just think about that with regards to commission. So what is the most important thing to the seller? Convenience, hassle-free, less stress. That's what people
having a plan.
Right. That's what people want. The commission, if you lead with cut commission, you've essentially, if you're competing against even a mediocre listing agent, if you're competing with somebody, they're going to win because they didn't make the commission the main thing. Making the commission thing is not meeting the seller where they're at. Even if the seller says commission's the most important thing to them, it really isn't, because the convenience of it is. And if you want any further proof than that, look at the really in some markets, the proliferation of the iBuyers. They're willing to basically, or sellers are willing to sell their house at sometimes as much as a 15% discount because of the fact that they don't
want the hassle.
The seller doesn't want the hassle. And so if you can essentially be a professional to the extent that you help position the house on the market so that it correctly reflects the buyers and the market's expectations, and you remove the stress from the seller, you take on as much of that as you can, and you do that through your professionalism. You do that through how you say things, what you say, when you say something matters. All this comes with experience, but it also comes with being properly trained.
That's knowledge equals confidence, right?
And ignorance equals fear. And so when you get to that point, then you start feeling more comfortable and confident. That will be something that your prospective sellers you're going to admit that. They're going to feel that vibe from you. You guys know what I'm talking about. You've been around professionals before, outside of real estate, inside of real estate, who have that sort of confidence. You want to do business with them. You're attracted to them. They are not trying to basically, this is the juxtaposition to what many of you believe is necessary for you to be successful in real estate, which is a lot of branding, which is a lot of social networking, which is sort of buying this illusionary vision of yourself as being successful before you actually are. That is the antithesis of what sellers actually want when they're hiring a professional. And I want you to really internalize what I just said, because it is true. There are no shortcuts to long-term success. There are shortcuts to short-term success. You can buy a lot of business in the short term. You can essentially spend a whole bunch of money on lead generation. You will most likely generate some buyer leads. You might close some transactions. You'll be agent of the month. 2 or 3 months later,
but it's not sustainable.
2 or 3 months later, you've got nothing because you have not really created anything. And it goes back to one of Julie and I's premises of why we take the stance and the approach we do to training and coaching agents. Is because we want you to build your mansion, your future, your house, right? Take it in the literal sense or take it in the figurative sense, on land that you own. And land that you own would you build a house on land that you didn't own? I mean, some people do. They're called land leases. But would you do that? Would you build your future on ground that you don't own? Well, when you're building your future based on bought business, based on branding, based on really any kind of, when you're buying leads from anybody, you don't own that business. Social networking is the absolute worst when it comes to building your business on something you don't own. Social networks change their algorithms, change their preferences. You could get canceled. You could have all kinds of things happen for whatever reasons that are out of your control.
Well, that company could go away. We've seen that before.
Right.
Too.
We've seen social. So when you build your business and your future on land you don't own, like I've seen, for example, let's just make this more practical. If you have most of your business that's coming from a source of business that is passive, in other words, for example, a relo company or those of you who have been in the business long enough to remember being REO agents. You built your business on land that you don't own. It's only going to be temporary cash flow, because if that REO, that asset management company, decides to hire somebody else, or they get bought or sold, or they don't get a portfolio for you to basically end up listing, you're out of business, because you never actually build a real business. You just stayed in this transitory cash flow type thinking. That's what we don't want you to do. Now, you can do that short term, and you can have some short term success, and you might have some short term financial benefits, but it won't be long term, and it certainly won't allow you to actually be free. And free is where your money works for you. You no longer work for your money, and that comes from a long term profitable real estate business. I know this is a lot for you to consume, but really at the end of the day, this is the bottom line in how you build a long term sustainable business, this type of thinking.
So here's the action steps. As you go through your real estate world, daily, weekly, monthly, but this is easier to do daily, ask yourself, what am I saying? No, I don't really do that. I can't offer that. I'll give you, there's so many examples of knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. Agents that say, well, because they don't understand, say, a 1031 exchange. That's not my cup of tea. Let me refer you to somebody. Or worse, not even referring them. FHA, VA. Oh, you don't want to do that. I've heard terrible things about it. Well, is that true, or are you just ignorant about it? Can you lease my property before I sell it? Nope, I don't do leases.
Julie,
how many times are you saying no versus yes, it would be my pleasure to help you?
Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear, even is more pernicious than what you're saying. Because, for example, how many of you right now are living in fear, secret fear and panic of actually getting a call to list a house with a seller you don't have the relationship with?
Yeah.
In other words, you're not competitive and you know it. You don't have a listing presentation. You don't know how to pre-qualify. You don't have a pre-listing kit. You don't know how to overcome sellers' objections. You are absolutely ignorant about how to get a listing that's going to be competitive.
How to compete.
Right. Yeah. Somebody said, you come across an opportunity, somebody cold call, you just, for some reason, you pick up the seller lead. You have no connection to them. Nobody you know knows them. You have no inside ball. This is straight up competition. You're one of 3 agents that are competing. I bet you most of you wouldn't even go.
Yeah,
right?
And they do weird stuff too, is they'll over pre-qualify. Even if the seller says, I want this price, if it's 10,000 too high in the agent's mind, they're just overpricing it anyway. They come up with excuses not to go on it. And if they do go on it and they don't get it, they blame the other agent or the seller.
Right.
So that's all no bueno. And this is why we have coaching. This is why we have robust sections in our coaching about investment property, about different types of loans, FHA, VA, conventional, non-conventional, high net worth people. We teach you all of this stuff.
I know a lot of you come to Julie and I's coaching program, and we have 13 coaches. We have a fairly large business. This is a coaching organization that we have coaching clients in not just the United States and Canada, but in different parts of the country. A lot of you come to us after you've been snake bit by some of the things we've warned you about, right?
Yeah.
You listen to our podcast. Maybe you listen to it and you make these, you do these dumb things anyway with buying leads and doing all the rest of it. And then you still listen to us and then you eventually realize what we're saying to you is true. Okay, there's one way. And some of you basically will start listening to us after you're already mired in all the dumbness. You're already doing all this gimmicky stuff. And you're now sort of slowly, painfully realizing after you start listening to the podcast, yep, what they said is happening. Yep, this makes sense what Tim and Julie are saying. So you come to us at different stages, and this is frankly the best coaching clients, you come to us after, fortunately, you've been able to survive. You've not failed out of the business.
A lot of them have done pretty well.
You've done okay. You've been in the business 2 to 3 years.
But they're stuck.
And now you're stuck. And now you realize that what we've been saying is true, that you've been building your business on land that you don't own. And now you're ready. And maybe a lot of you are in that situation are essentially centers of influence and past clients. Or you're trying to build a team, and yet you may have a team. You may have agents that call you boss. But guess what? You're not making any profit. And you're asking your team coach guru, when will I make a profit? And they say later. That comes later. You're building a business.
Or you are the team leader and your baby bird buyer agents are saying, give me more worms. Give me more worms. These aren't any good worms.
That's a good baby bird voice, Julie. And so what's going to happen is you're then going to say, you know what? I didn't get into this business for the reasons that I was told to be in this business. I got into this business because I wanted to be my own boss. Yes. I wanted to have freedom of my schedule. Yes. I wanted to be free. Ultimately, the reason that many of you got into this business is you wanted to be financially free, where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. Simply put, you wake up in the morning. You don't have to worry about money. You know all the money that's, you have enough money coming in passively that's going to meet or exceed all your personal financial goals. Is that something that's that you guys can emotionally relate to, that being a reality. It doesn't have to be tens of thousands of dollars. For many of you, if you created $500 or $7,500 a month in passive income, you are, by Tim and Julie's definition, rich, where your money's working for you. You no longer work for your money. And so that immediately changes the nature of your relationship with the word work. When you have enough money coming in that you no longer have to worry about money, that the money that you are then going to be making from your work is going to be more pleasurable. And the funny thing is you actually start making more money from transactions because of the fact that the nature of the money that you're earning is different. You're going to be making money now because you want to surprise your family with a trip to Disney World, right? You're not going to tell them. You're going to do some closing.
And you're not going to throw it on a credit card.
Right. You're not. Exactly. You guys get it? You're going to make more money because you want to donate money to something that you care about. You're going to make more money. That's what happens. We've had coaching clients, hundreds of them at this point, that get to the point where they've been able to run profitable real estate businesses. And from those profitable real estate businesses, they then are able to become rich. That's how you buy rental properties. But guys, straight up, the greatest, I don't want to call it a shortcut, but the greatest advantage that all of you guys have that Julie and I did not have when we were in the real estate business is eXp Realty. There's no doubt in my mind, for those of you who, and look, most of you are, I'm sure, would consider yourselves having open minds, right? If you have an open mind, which is an attribute you better have, then you should have an open mind to at least looking at what eXp offers and why, for example, there's 60,000 agents at eXp and why there's projected to be 75 to 85,000 there by the end of the year. Why their eXp stock, by the way, the quarterly earnings just came out, why the stock is going through the roof, why, all these things are happening. Mm-hmm. It's because eXp for real estate agents is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
It's a wealth accelerator.
Right.
Bar none.
Bar none. And that's the thing. I mean, Julie and I talk about this, and I don't want to, spend the rest of the time talking about eXp, but the reality of it is if you are looking to become rich where your money works for you and you no longer work for your money, you have two distinct paths, right? Well, three really. Your rich Uncle Bob passes away, right? Not likely, so let's scratch that one. You're going to buy enough rental properties and live off the cash flow. Let me tell you, from having we own a lot of rental properties, that is almost impossible to do, okay? Just it is. Taxes are going up.
And when we bought them, they weren't, on average, what's the national average now? 380,000?
Yeah.
Okay, it's so much harder for them to do that now.
Well, I mean, we'll have a practical conversation.
Yeah.
If you wanted to earn $5,000 per month off paid off rental properties,
month in and month out.
Okay, help me do this math. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't even know where you're going to buy these because you and I do look.
Assuming you can find them.
We're habitual rental house buyers.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't bought any in a long time, but so if you look at, for example, if you were to buy a $200,000 house, I don't know where you'd find it, frankly.
Maybe in Boise.
Maybe Boise. Well, we've been to a lot of towns where you could probably buy a nice one and rent it out, right? Mm-hmm. So realistically, after taxes, this is assuming that there's not maintenance and upkeep, which there is. You're going to be making about $1,000 a month on that $200,000 house. I talked to actually somebody in Boise. I don't remember his name now. He's a podcast listener, so I apologize, Bud, for not remembering your name. That 24-year-old guy.
Yes.
And we were talking about the fact that I asked, "What's the entry point in Boise?" And he said $350,000. And I said, "What does that $350,000 house buy you? Or what do you get in rent? $1,200?"
Yeah.
Okay, let me explain. So here's the concept. If Julie and I were to go out and buy, let's say, a $200,000 rental, again, we don't know where, and let's say we pay cash for it. We pay cash for it. We're now $200,000 lighter, right? The most we're going to get off that property net after carrying costs of the property taxes, which the owner has to pay, you're going to be looking at roughly $1,000 a month in net.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, if the hot water tank doesn't blow, if your roof doesn't leak, if you don't have vacancies.
And it's paid off. So that's the first hurdle for a lot of agents, because this is assuming that you're paying your taxes on time, you're saving money, and you're paying your bills, and you pay cash.
So that means you need 5 $200,000 paid off rental properties in order to make $5,000 a month. That's the point I was trying to make. You need $1 million in after-tax income to buy to earn $60,000 a month, hypothetically, and paid off rental properties. And this is the concept that Julie and I understood when we got into real estate, but rental properties were less expensive then. We were buying some for $100,000, less than $100,000. And during the real estate crash, we bought a bunch for that were, have tripled and quadrupled. But look, right place, right time. And fortunately, we could do it. That is not going to happen anytime in the near future. There are no real estate crashes on the near or even longer term horizon. So the reality of it is if you want to be rich, where your money works for you, you no longer work for your money. And Uncle Bob is tapped out.
Right.
Okay.
Or maybe you don't even have an Uncle Bob.
You can do it the way we did it, and this is what we did. We did buy a bunch of rental properties. Jules and I have been married for 3 decades this year, in 1 month, by the way.
I know.
That's amazing. And we've been buying rental properties up until about 2 years fairly consistently.
Yeah.
And we did it with the idea that in most of them, we would save up the money and we'd pay cash. And we'd save up the money and we'd pay cash. And then we'd buy a rental property. And then we would take in that little menial return on investment. And the idea was we'd have enough where we basically could live off the cash flow of our rentals. And we actually did it. But here's the fallacy. Is the vacancy rate, and all the all the hassles that go. Even if you hire managers to manage your property, you're managing your managers,
And you're paying your managers.
right? And then property taxes go up, and then all your other expenses go up, and then there's some restriction on this and the other thing, and all these different. Oh, we didn't mention the the eviction moratorium, which frankly we didn't have to deal with. But you're looking at this being a thing that of the wealth creation vehicle that's been relevant in the past. It is very difficult to make it work now. Tim, you should look at multifamilies. I agree, but the math still works because you still have to be putting a huge amount of money into it just to get any kind of decent cash flow versus EXP revenue share. And that's the thing that I'm excited about for all of you, because if you just open your mind to it, the amount of people that you have to sponsor at EXP to get the benefit of revenue share to the point where you're making $5,000 a month. Julie and I have come to know dozens, hundreds of people at this point that are essentially rich by our definition, where their money works for them and they no longer have to work for their money because of EXP's
But
revenue
they don't have
share.
to sponsor hundreds of people. In fact, with EXP, you don't have to sponsor anybody. If
You don't. You
want
don't have to even participate. But I'll give you guys some numbers. And if I'm not perfectly accurate on this, forgive me. 60,000 agents at EXP now. 40% or roughly 24,000 are receiving some form of revenue share every single month. So for you to think that revenue share is not something that's the benefit of agents, there's your proof that that is not a correct statement. 24,000 agents at EXP are receiving some form of revenue share. When let's assume EXP eclipses 100,000, you're now looking at 40,000 agents at EXP are embracing revenue share to the point where they might be rich, where their money works for them and they no longer have to work for their money. Or you could try to save up $1 million in after tax income. If you live in this amazingly gorgeous city where we are right now in San Francisco, you're probably going to have to earn $1 million to $1.6 million in before tax income between state and federal taxes in order to basically save $1 million, in order for you to basically find those rental properties, and good luck finding them. This is the point of this opportunity that all of you guys have. So I ended up getting on a soapbox anyway.
No, but we were talking about different opportunities, and back when we were building our rental portfolio, that was probably the best play there was.
Yeah, definitely.
But it certainly took a lot longer. Okay, and we didn't have the EXP opportunity. I wish we would have, but I'm glad
Definitely.
that all of our listeners do. And I think, I don't know if you want to put any numbers to it, but you definitely don't have to be sponsoring tons and tons, hundreds of agents to get to. Even if it's just $5,000 a month, the difference is this. And I was always struck by this at the EXP, different meetings where I hear agents talk about this.
They can watch the videos, Julie.
Yeah, but $5,000 a month, here's the difference. Consistently,
Yep.
month in and month out. And if you choose to and you learn to easily, that can be $10,000 a month. It could be $15,000 a month. How life-changing is that? To know, even if it's just your basic monthly income that is covered regardless.
Right. So here, again, didn't mean to talk about this, but you can
We
tell
get
we're-
excited about it.
Well, I'm excited about it because every morning when I look at my computer and I open my phone, I get these texts from people. A lot of times it's like a massive wave of gratitude.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
it makes me that and a really strong cup of coffee is pretty much how I like
good way to
to
start the day,
And
yeah.
usually 100 push-ups, which I haven't done for 2 days in a row. But I mean, you combine all these things with the massive waves of gratitude and all the people whose lives that were changing just because we had open minds to the opportunity ourselves.
That's right.
This is me being in gratitude towards essentially EXP, frankly, and past Tim and Julie, all the folks that are involved in our revenue share group called Libertas, which, by the way, guys, if you want to learn more about EXP, just text the letters, really, EXP to, what is it again?
47372.
47372.
That's right.
If you're ready to join EXP and you're looking for a proactive sponsor, someone who's obviously going to be helping you build revenue share, please do consider Julie and I. We are formally applying for the job of being your sponsor at EXP. Just text me directly at 512-758-0206. And listen, some of you guys don't like Julie and I talking about EXP. That would be akin to Julie and I not talking to you guys about some, thing we came across that's going to help you make money, right? If we discovered something that was a home run idea, that some new way of doing something that was going to result in you guys taking more listings, and we didn't tell you about it, wouldn't we kind of be SOBs for not doing that?
Seriously.
That's exactly how we feel.
Way out of integrity if that were to happen.
Or if we discover, which is often the case, unfortunately, something that's being sold to agents, it's being told that agents are being sold to believe is going to be something that's going to save them from having to do the real work in real estate. And Julie and I see these things and we don't tell you about them. Wouldn't we also be SOBs for not telling you that this stuff is a gimmick and it's snake oil? And, that's the stance we take. And that's the reason we're so strong in our convictions about what we say, because it's not just our opinions. A lot of you guys think we're bloviating just based on our opinions. There are experiences based on our coaching clients and our opinions based on our experiences. So this isn't just Julie and I formulating ideas based on just things we read on the internet. This is based on hundreds of thousands of coaching calls and decades in the real estate industry. There are not too many people out there that have our depth and breadth of experience, and I'm not bragging. In a way, you should feel sorry for me that we've been coaching agents for this long.
Yeah,
I
do.
Yeah, I do too. But we can't. Yeah. Our brain is so hardwired to think like this. We couldn't change it if we wanted to.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's unfortunate.
But it's because we have your back. It's because we've walked in your shoes, and because we do see the difference, and we do appreciate all of the opportunities that are out there for you. And gosh, how awful would it be if somebody would say to us, hey, have you guys heard about this EXP thing and all the great stuff that they have to offer agents? And we're like, oh, no, I haven't looked at that. That's crazy.
I'll tell you guys something interesting. I think maybe two of you will find it interesting, but since it's the end of the podcast, I'll tell you anyway. So Julie and I get excluded from a lot of things in the real estate industry when the sponsors find out that Julie and I are on the speaking list. So we will get invited to speak at something or another. And then all of a sudden Zillow, or I'm not saying Zillow in particular, but tech companies will find out that Julie and I are being invited to be speakers, and they know what we're going to say, the truth. And so the sponsors will then essentially make it so that we're all of a sudden not going to be on the roster of things to speak. And I'll tell you what's more is some of these tech companies, especially the smaller ones, I've been told that they have tried to specifically refute what Julie and I are saying with regards to the veracity of our claims that a lot of this stuff is just snake oil that they're selling, to the point where they try to go online and say bad stuff about what we're saying without posting any facts. They're the ones that are bloviating. So we're seeing, in some cases, an organized attempt to cancel us because what we're saying about the tech companies and what we're saying about a lot of the snake oil that's come into the marketplace is true, and they know it's true. And when agents listen to us, when you guys listen to us, the reason this is the number one listen to daily podcast is because agents are looking for a reprieve from the lies. They're looking for a reprieve from the Mickey Mouse. They're looking for some reconnect with why they originally got into real estate, which was not necessarily the reasons why they're being sold that they're supposed to believe. Like, you do not have to be a brand. You do not have to have a team. You do not have to have a fancy logo or a fancy website. Matter of fact, there are reasons not to do those things. Now, if you want to go around the bend and do those things eventually, you're more than welcome to, but make sure you do the proactive things first. And once you master the art and science of doing the proactive, you probably will never be attractive to the passive. And that means that the people that are selling you the passive will never make your money, will never get your money. You'll never do business with them because you're too smart to do business with them. Exactly. And that's what we're all about. Now here, just to really kind of level this out, again, didn't mean to get on a class 3 rant, but we would personally, as a business, make way more money if we did what our competitors did, which is
Sold
basically
you guys a bunch of crap.
Yeah, so basically said, oh, today we're going to be talking about this CRM. We're going to be those CRMs and all those tech platforms are paying those speakers, those coaches, the people that you are trusting, and maybe you've misplaced your trust. They are paying those people to essentially fly their flags for them. That's not integrity where Julie and I come from. Integrity is taking what somebody has to say, essentially looking at it objectively, looking at it through the filters that we put in place, which is always being agent-centric and what's going to put you guys in a position to essentially have the most net profit and what's going to put you in a position to essentially have a long-term sustainable business. And if it passes through those filters, and frankly, if the people have reputations that we can then, trust to then refer our agents to, then we're going to do it.
Yes, and we do that.
But extremely rarely.
Yes, but that's part of what Premier Coaching is about, is we help them filter all that. When we have our daily semi-private calls, oftentimes our coaching clients will bring something to us and they'll say, hey, I found this in my email. What do you think about it? What's the skinny on this? And we don't just shoot from the hip. We have that research. The coaches research it. We research it. And we tell you if it's the real deal and if it's worth it or if it's just a bunch of baloney snake oil.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it. I would say 99% is just baloney snake
Definitely.
oil. They're taking advantage of agents' opportunistic natures, short-term money thinking, not long-term business thinking, and they're taking advantage of the agent's natural desire to chase the shiny object.
Sure. It's the easy button mentality.
It is, and we're not going to do it.
No.
We're not going to participate in it. We're not going to market it. We're not going to advertise it. We're not going to profit from it. So if you want to hate on us because of that, well, then go right ahead.
Have fun with that.
In the meantime, for the rest of you guys who want to stay on this path with us, we want to sincerely thank you for continuing to make this the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in at least the United States. It's our pleasure, but really it's our honor to be part of your lives, and we sincerely appreciate you being part of ours. I want to put out the call again. If you have the inclination, the impetus, please do go over to iTunes, and please do give Julie and I and this podcast, Real Estate Coaching Radio, a 5-star review. We would certainly appreciate it. That's something that does matter to us because then it allows, frankly, iTunes algorithm will push the podcast to other people around the world that we should also be helping. So I would really sincerely appreciate it if you would go over to iTunes. It only takes a second. If you're listening on our podcast, if you're listening on our website, timandjulieharris.com, you can go over to iTunes or go over to Stitcher, whatever your podcast listening device is, and please do consider giving us a 5-star review. Don't give us a 4-star review because, interestingly enough, the 4-star reviews don't really count for anything. Might as well not have done it. A 5-star review, we sincerely appreciate it. If we've helped you at any point in your real estate career, that is the only thing we ask, is just give us a 5-star review. That would be something that would it would help us continue our mission, which is being of service to all of you, just like your mission is to be of service to your family, your community, and the people who you choose to do business with. Anything else you'd like to say, guys?
Well, if you're in San Francisco for the next 4 days or the surrounding areas and you'd like to catch a cup of coffee, then just reach out to us. I think the way to do that is on the link to this podcast.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, more specifically, though, message us on Instagram. We posted a video. I think I may have mentioned this. I posted a video last night of those incredible foghorns around the Golden Gate Bridge. I went out there and it was like 60 degrees and froze my jojombas off, my wedding vegetables, just for the sake of sharing that experience with all of you. So that's over on Instagram. But we are posting where we are, where we're going to be, a little travel vlog, if you will. And obviously this podcast is keeping track of where we're going and where we're going to be.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if you guys would like to connect with us on any of our future layovers, we're not going to go out of our way. But if you come to us, if you're local, we would love to spend some quality coffee time for all of you. And I understand San Francisco has some of the best coffee on planet Earth, and I'm really looking forward to putting that to the test. You guys have a fantastic day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.